I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. My name is Mike, and until recently, I thought I had a pretty decent life. I was married to a woman named Corinne for over 8 years, and we had built a comfortable life together. Our relationship was the kind that many people envied. We'd been through a lot together, and I thought we had a solid foundation. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but I truly believed our love was strong enough to weather any storm. But over the last few months, I started to notice changes in Corinne. It began subtly. She became distant, often glued to her phone. I chalked it up to work stress. She had been busy at her job as a marketing manager, and I assumed the pressure was getting to her. But then came the little things. She would leave the dinner table to answer calls in hushed tones, her laughter felt forced, and she started taking longer trips to the grocery store. I felt like I was slowly losing touch with her, but every time I tried to bring it up, she'd brush me off, telling me I was being paranoid. One night I was watching TV while she was supposedly working late. For whatever reason, I found myself scrolling through her social media. I came across a picture that sent my heart plummeting. It was a photo of her and my doctor, Dr. Harris, at a fancy restaurant, clearly enjoying each other's company. They were laughing, and her hand was on his arm. At first, I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe it was a professional dinner, but a nagging feeling in my gut told me otherwise. The next day, I decided to confront her. I picked a time when she first got home, hoping to catch her off guard. As I casually mentioned the photo, I watched her face change. It was like flipping a switch. She went from relaxed to defensive in a heartbeat. "It was a work thing, Mike. You're being ridiculous," she snapped back. The defensiveness in her voice only confirmed my fears. I pressed her further, and she began to spin this elaborate web of lies, claiming that Dr. Harris had been helping her with a project and that it was no big deal. I felt a mix of anger and hurt wash over me. How could she do this? I confronted her about how she'd been acting distant lately. She turned the tables, making it seem like I was the problem. She claimed that I'd been unsupportive and that she just needed space. I stood there, feeling completely blindsided. As the evening wore on, I dropped the bombshell. "Is there something going on between you and Dr. Harris?" I asked, my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. She froze for a moment, and I could see the gears turning in her head. Then, without missing a beat, she denied it. "You're insane, Mike. You're just jealous and insecure. You need to trust me." It was then that I realized the depth of the betrayal. I felt like I was standing in quicksand, and the more I struggled to keep my footing, the deeper I sank. Her lies were suffocating, and my heart felt heavy with the weight of what I suspected to be true. I had always thought that if I ever found myself in this situation, I'd be the kind of guy who would confront the issue head-on and demand the truth. But there I was, questioning everything I thought I knew about my wife and our marriage. The emotional turmoil was intense. I felt anger boiling inside me, but also an overwhelming sadness that threatened to consume me. As the days went on, I found myself spiraling into a pit of despair, weighing my options. Should I fight for the woman I loved, or was it time to face the truth that maybe this was the end of our relationship? I needed to gather my thoughts and figure out how to move forward. What I did know was that I wasn't going to let this consume me. I had to focus on myself. I needed to take care of my health and well-being. I started hitting the gym again, eating better and focusing on activities that made me feel good. It was time for a change, and I was determined to take my life back, even if it meant letting go of Corinne. As the weeks passed, I found myself wrestling with a myriad of emotions. Some days were filled with anger, while others were drenched in sadness. I tried to approach Corinne as if everything was normal, but the tension was palpable. We were living in the same house, sharing the same space, but it felt like we were on opposite sides of a vast chasm. I noticed she was still being evasive with her phone and working longer hours. At the same time, I was getting my life back on track. I started seeing a therapist to help untangle my feelings. I spoke with friends, seeking their advice, hoping for clarity. They urged me to confront Corinne again to seek the truth, but I was hesitant. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing how deeply she had hurt me. Instead, I decided to focus on my health. I joined a gym, hired a personal trainer, and committed to a new diet. I felt empowered, and for the first time in a long time, I was prioritizing myself. Then came the turning point. I was at the gym one evening, sweating through a tough set of squats when my phone buzzed with a text. It was one of my coworkers, who I hadn't spoken to in a while. He casually mentioned seeing Karen with Dr. Harris at yet another restaurant. This time, it was a more upscale place known for its romantic ambience. My heart sank. I felt the adrenaline rush through my veins, but instead of despair, it ignited a fire within me. That night, I decided to put a plan into motion. I needed evidence. I wasn't going to confront her again without something tangible, so I began to subtly investigate. I started tracking her behavior, nodding when she left and returned home. I checked her phone when I had the chance, but she had become more secretive, changing passwords and keeping it close. One afternoon, I had an appointment for a routine checkup with a different doctor, someone I had seen recommended online. While there, I casually mentioned Dr. Harris to the receptionist, who looked puzzled. "Oh, you mean Dr. Harris? He hasn't been here for a while. He's opened his own practice downtown." My heart raced. A part of me felt vindicated. It confirmed that my instincts were right. But another part of me felt uneasy. Where was Karen seeing him? The next day, I decided to take a different route home. I drove past the new practice and saw Karen's car parked outside. I parked a few blocks away and waited. My mind was racing. I felt like a detective on the hunt for a criminal, and the sight of her car made my stomach churn. After what felt like hours, I saw her walk out of the building, laughing with a man who could only be Dr. Harris. My heart dropped. They stood close. The chemistry was evident. It was more than a professional relationship. I could see it in their body language and the way they leaned into each other while chatting. I pulled out my phone and snapped a few photos. Every click of the camera shutter felt like a cathartic release of the pain I had been holding inside. That night, I laid awake in bed, the images flashing in my mind. I felt numb but also strangely empowered. I knew I was ready to confront her again, but I was going to do it differently this time. This time, I would have undeniable proof of her betrayal. I spent the next day gathering my thoughts, preparing for the emotional roller coaster that was about to unfold. When Karen came home that evening, I acted as if everything was fine, just like I had been doing. But inside, I felt like a tightly coiled spring ready to snap. As we settled into our usual routine, I waited until after dinner to make my move. "Karen, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up from her phone, annoyance flashing in her eyes. "Can't it wait? I'm really tired." "No, it can't wait. I know what's going on," I replied, my heart pounding. The moment was finally here. I pulled out the photos I had taken and laid them on the table between us. "You need to explain this," I said, my voice firm. Her face fell as she recognized the images. The color drained from her cheeks, and for a moment she looked genuinely stunned. "Mike, I can explain." She stammered, but I could see the lies crumbling. "I don't want to hear any more excuses. You've been lying to me for months," I continued, my frustration boiling over. The anger that I had been holding back surged forth. "You had the nerve to call me paranoid while you were sneaking around with my doctor." She opened her mouth to speak, but I interrupted her. "Save it, Karen. I want the truth, and I want it now." For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. I realized that I had the upper hand, and it felt good. With those photos laid bare, I was ready to hear her response, to finally confront the reality of our shattered marriage. Karen stared at the photos in disbelief, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I could see the gears turning in her mind, desperately seeking an escape route. It was a strange moment. Part of me wanted to revel in my triumph, but another part felt hollow. My heart ached with the knowledge that the woman I once trusted completely had betrayed me in the worst possible way. "Mike, please," she began, her voice trembling. "It's not what it looks like." Classic line, right? I almost rolled my eyes. "Then what is it?" I challenged, crossing my arms. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're having an affair with my doctor." "Do you want to tell me it's just a work thing again?" She shifted in her seat, clearly trying to regain some control over the situation. "Okay. Okay, I went to see him for a few sessions about my anxiety, she admitted reluctantly. We just got close and things happened, but it wasn't anything serious. Not serious, I echoed. You're making excuses, Corinne. You were out with him more than you were home with me. You were lying to my face. She took a deep breath, and for a moment I thought she might actually come clean. But then she leaned back, crossing her arms defensively. You were so preoccupied with your own life, your workouts, your friends. You didn't notice me slipping away. You didn't care. I felt the anger boiling up again. So this is my fault. You decided to cheat because I was focusing on my health. The betrayal stung even more when she tried to twist it into my responsibility. I wasn't cheating, Mike. I was just looking for someone who understood me, she said, her voice rising. You've been distant. You've changed. Changed. I started taking care of myself because I felt like I was losing you. I shot back. You think it was easy to watch you pull away and not know why. You were supposed to be my partner, she huffed, clearly frustrated. I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't know why I did it. It just happened, and now it's like this huge mess. We can fix this. Fix this. You want to fix it after lying to me and betraying my trust. I shook my head in disbelief. I don't even recognize you anymore. You're not the person I married. The reality of our situation started to settle in. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a fundamental betrayal of everything we had built together. I felt like the ground beneath me was crumbling. The emotional impact of her words and actions was immense, and I wasn't sure how to navigate through it. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. What do you want from me, Corinne? Do you want to keep lying and pretending this never happened? I want us to work on our marriage, she pleaded, her voice softer now. We can go to couples therapy. I'll do anything, just don't leave me. I paused, considering her words. A part of me wanted to believe she could change, that we could somehow salvage what was left of our relationship. But another part screamed that it was too late. I was wounded and the trust was shattered. I don't know if I can do that, I finally admitted. I need time to think. Right now I'm just feeling lost. I can't lose you, Mike. I love you, she said, her voice cracking. Do you? I asked, the bitterness creeping back in. Because your actions say otherwise. You might have loved me, but that love wasn't strong enough to stop you from sleeping with someone else. The silence that followed felt heavy. I wanted to scream, to cry, anything but sit in this emotional limbo. I had expected confrontation to be cathartic, but it felt like a weight had settled in my chest instead. After what felt like an eternity, she spoke again. I'll give you space, but please don't shut me out completely. We can come back from this if you give me a chance. I shook my head, feeling the tears prick my eyes. I just don't know right now. I need to figure out what's next for me. As I walked away, I felt her eyes on me, filled with desperation and regret. I didn't know if I was making the right choice, but I had to prioritize my own mental health. I stepped out of the room, feeling as though I was stepping into a new chapter of my life, one that didn't include the woman I once thought I knew. Over the next couple of days, I found myself flooded with emotions. I had gone from feeling betrayed to feeling a strange sense of liberation. I was finally free to make my own choices without the cloud of doubt hanging over me. But the question remained, what would I do next? I began to reflect on my life, my needs, and what I wanted moving forward. For too long, I had prioritized Corinne's needs over my own. Now, it was time to focus on me. I set out to discover my worth again, but I knew that I had to make a decision soon. I felt like I was at a crossroads, and the direction I chose would determine the rest of my life. In the days that followed, I focused more on myself than I had in years. I took longer walks, spent more time at the gym, and even started cooking for myself again. Cooking had always been something I enjoyed, but over the years it had become one of those things that fell to the wayside. Now, I found solace in chopping vegetables and creating meals that made me feel good. It was therapeutic, a way to reclaim a part of myself that had been lost in the chaos of my marriage. Every time I stirred a pot, I felt a little more empowered. I started focusing on my health not only physically but mentally. I read books about self-improvement, watched videos on emotional resilience, and even started journaling. It was almost like I was rediscovering who I was, sans the shadow of Corinne's influence hanging over me. But there were moments when doubt crept in. I would hear a noise in the house and turn, expecting her to walk in, or I'd catch a glimpse of her in the corner of my eye. Some nights I would lie awake, my mind racing with memories of us, how we laughed, the way she used to look at me. It was bittersweet, and sometimes I found myself wondering if I was making a mistake by wanting to leave. Was there still love buried under all the betrayal? One evening, as I sat on the couch watching TV, I received a text from Corinne. It was a simple, "Hey, can we talk?" I hesitated before responding, feeling a mix of anxiety and curiosity. Part of me wanted to put her off, but another part wanted to understand if she had come to terms with everything that had happened. We decided to meet at a coffee shop the next day. I walked in with my heart pounding. Would she try to manipulate me again? Would she lay on the charm and tears? When I saw her sitting at a small table in the corner, I noticed how different she looked. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and she wore minimal makeup, almost as if she was trying to either impress me or show me how serious she was. "Thanks for coming," she said softly as I sat down. "Let's get to it," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened," she began, her voice shaky. "I know. I messed up. I should have been honest with you from the start, and I'm so sorry for the pain I caused. I realize now how much I took you for granted." I nodded, still guarded. "And what about Dr. Harris? Where is that headed?" She looked away for a moment, her eyes darting around the cafe. "I ended things with him. I realized that I didn't love him. It was just a moment of weakness and confusion. I don't want that life. I want you, Mike." For the first time, I saw a glimmer of sincerity in her eyes, but I couldn't help but wonder how genuine it truly was. "How do I know this isn't just another manipulation?" I asked, my voice firm but edged with vulnerability. "Because I've been really working on myself," she replied, her tone earnest. "I've started attending therapy too. It wasn't just about me feeling lost, it was about us not communicating. I want to fix this to become better for you and for us." I leaned back, processing her words. Could it really be that simple? Did we have a chance, or was I fooling myself into thinking things could return to what they were? "But that's the thing, Corinne," I said, my voice steady. "I don't want things to go back to the way they were. I need something real, something honest. I can't go back to living in a shadow of distrust." "I get it," she said, her fingers fidgeting with her cup. "But I want to rebuild that trust. I'm willing to do the work. I know I messed up, but I'm committed." "Committing to what?" I pressed. "To a life where you could slip away again. To a relationship where honesty is a luxury. I can't live that way anymore." She sighed, looking defeated for a moment. "I know I can't change the past, but can't we at least try? Can you give me a chance to prove that I've changed?" It was a lot to unpack. I thought about how much I had already invested in this relationship, how deeply our lives had been intertwined. But I also remembered the pain, the betrayal, and the feeling of being blindsided. "I need more time," I finally said, my heart heavy. "I don't think rushing into anything is going to help us. I need to see real change, not just words." She looked at me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I can respect that. Just know that I'm here and I want to fight for you, for us." We parted ways, and as I drove home, I felt a mix of relief and uncertainty wash over me. I had stood my ground, but the weight of our conversation lingered like a heavy blanket. I didn't know if I could ever fully trust her again, yet I also didn't want to shut the door completely. Maybe it was time to take a step back and really focus on myself. No distractions, no doubts. I decided to continue my journey of self-discovery, even if it meant doing so without Corinne by my side for now. I couldn't afford to lose myself again, not when I had just started to reclaim my identity. The road ahead was murky, but I was determined to navigate it with care, taking each step as it came. I knew I had to remain steadfast, putting my own health and emotional well-being first. Trust could take time, but my journey toward loving myself again had already begun. As the days turned into weeks, I felt myself gradually regaining a sense of stability. My routine at the gym became more regimented, and I found joy in the little things, doing my own laundry, cooking meals just for me, and discovering new hobbies. I even took up hiking, immersing myself in nature, finding solace among the trees and trails. It was a refreshing change, and I realized that I had been neglecting my own happiness for far too long. But amidst this newfound clarity, the specter of Corinne loomed large. She would text me regularly, checking in, trying to initiate conversations about our future. I could tell she was genuinely trying to prove her commitment, but I was still hesitant. Each message felt like a reminder of the past, a tug-of-war between my desire for closure and the hope for a second chance. One evening, as I sat on my couch watching a documentary about personal growth, there was a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, but as I opened it, there stood Corinne, looking nervous yet determined. I froze for a moment, unsure of how to react. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated, but ultimately stepped aside to let her in. "What's going on, Corinne?" She took a deep breath, and I could see the tension in her shoulders. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I know I haven't been perfect, but I want to take steps to really show you I'm serious about making this work." I nodded, listening intently. "And how do you plan to do that?" "I've researched workshops on rebuilding trust for couples." "I want to attend one with you," she said, her eyes searching mine for any sign of hope. "I think it would help us both understand what went wrong and how to fix it." I appreciated her initiative, but I was still skeptical. "And what about your commitment to therapy? How do I know that this isn't just another way for you to circumvent the hard work you need to do individually?" Her face fell for a moment, but she quickly recovered. "I have been going to therapy, Mike. I promise. But I think we need to work together as well. It's not just about my mistakes. It's about us and how we communicate." I weighed her words carefully. I could see that she was trying, but the thought of jumping back into that dynamic terrified me. "I need to be honest, Corinne. I'm still not completely sold on the idea of us. I don't know if I'm ready to dive into a workshop or anything else." She nodded, understanding but visibly disappointed. "I get it. I just want you to know that I'm willing to do what it takes. You've been my anchor, and I don't want to lose that." Her words struck a chord, but they were also a reminder of the pain I had felt. I didn't want to be someone's anchor if it meant sacrificing my own well-being. "I need time, Corinne. I don't want to rush into anything just because we've had this conversation. I'm still healing. Can we at least agree to keep talking to check in on each other?" she asked, her voice softening. "I don't want to push you away even more." I contemplated her request. While I wasn't ready to commit to anything more than conversations, it felt better than completely shutting her out. "Okay, let's keep talking, but I need you to understand that I'm not ready to make any promises." She smiled faintly, relief washing over her face. "Thank you, Mike. That's all I can ask for right now." In the weeks that followed, we began to find a new rhythm. Our conversations shifted from the painful past to more light-hearted topics, our favorite movies, travel plans, and future aspirations. I found myself laughing again, sharing moments that felt genuine. But the air still carried an unspoken tension, a reminder of the betrayal that loomed over us. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, I felt a sense of normalcy return, but it was quickly interrupted by a loud ping from her phone. Corinne picked it up, her expression suddenly changing. I could sense something was off. "Who was that?" I asked cautiously. "It's just a friend," she replied too quickly, her eyes darting back to the screen. My heart sank. "A friend, really?" "Because I thought we were past the lies." "I'm not lying," she snapped, turning to face me. "It's just a group chat from work." But my intuition was telling me otherwise. I don't want to be the guy who questions everything, but trust is fragile right now. I thought we were working towards honesty. She sighed, running her fingers through her hair. "I'm trying, Mike. It's not easy to rebuild after what I did, but I'm genuinely working on myself." Despite her frustrations, I could see her struggle. "I understand that, but I need transparency from you. If you want us to move forward, there can't be any secrets." She nodded, her defenses lowering. "You're right, I'll be more open. I don't want to jeopardize what we're building." We spent the rest of the evening watching the movie, but the mood had shifted. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still lurking beneath the surface. It was exhausting, living in a state of uncertainty and half-truths. Later that week, I decided to take a step back from our conversations. I needed space to think without the emotional weight of her presence clouding my judgment. I spent more time with friends, immersing myself in activities that brought me joy and reminded me of who I was outside of my relationship with Corinne. But even in the company of friends, the reality of my situation loomed large. I would catch myself daydreaming about a life where I wasn't burdened by heartbreak, where I could honestly say I was happy without any lingering doubts. Finally, I reached an important realization. I couldn't keep dancing around the issue. If I wanted to move forward, I had to address what had happened with Corinne head-on. I needed to decide whether we could rebuild, or if it was time for me to truly let go. As I sat in my favorite coffee shop one afternoon, I made a plan. I would meet with Corinne, and this time we would have the conversation that had been lingering in the air for far too long. It was time to either commit to rebuilding or to say our goodbyes for good. The following day, I called Corinne and asked her to meet me at the same coffee shop where we had our last serious conversation. I wanted a neutral ground, a place where we could talk without the distractions of home. As I arrived early, I watched people walk by, couples chatting, friends laughing. It felt like a world I wasn't fully part of anymore. The weight of my impending conversation pressed heavily on my chest. When she arrived, I could tell she was nervous. Her hands fidgeted with her purse and she looked around as if searching for the right words. I knew she sensed the gravity of our meeting. "Thanks for coming," I said, gesturing for her to sit. "Of course. I've been looking forward to talking," she replied, trying to sound upbeat, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. I took a deep breath, feeling the seriousness of the moment. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about us and what happened. I want to be honest about where I stand." She nodded, her eyes wide with a mix of hope and anxiety. "Okay, I'm ready to hear it. I've enjoyed our conversations and the time we've spent together, but I still feel this shadow hanging over us, the betrayal, the lies. It's hard for me to forget that." I paused, watching her expression carefully. "I want to know if you're genuinely committed to changing, or if this is just an effort to fix what you broke without really addressing the core issues." Her gaze dropped to the table, and for a moment I saw the vulnerability in her. "I know I can't erase what I did. I've been reflecting on my actions, and I know I have a long way to go, but I want to try, Mike. I want us to work. I don't want to lose you. Wanting to work on things is a start, but I need to see real action, not just words," I said firmly. "Actions speak louder than promises. I need to know you can be transparent and that you understand the depth of the impact your betrayal had on me." She looked up, tears welling in her eyes. "I completely understand. I've realized that I was selfish and didn't think about how my choices affected you. I've started understanding what our relationship really means to me." I took a moment to process her words. There was sincerity in her tone, but I was still hesitant. "What will you do to show me you're committed to change?" "I need to feel like you're in this for the long haul. I want to continue therapy, not just for myself but for us as a couple," she said, her voice steadying. "I want to learn how to communicate better, how to be honest and open, and how to create a safe space for both of us." I felt a small flicker of hope. Perhaps this was the beginning of a new chapter, but it would require work. "Okay," I said slowly. "Let's take it one step at a time, but I need you to know that it won't be easy. I still have trust issues, and I need to see you putting in the effort consistently." She nodded earnestly. "I'm committed, Mike. I'll do whatever it takes. I love you, and I don't want to lose what we had." I took a deep breath, weighing her words. Love is a powerful thing, but it can't be the only foundation we build on. We need to create a relationship that is strong enough to withstand the storms. I want to feel secure again. "Then let's build that together," she said, her voice filled with determination. "I'm willing to start fresh to earn your trust again." As we left the coffee shop, I felt lighter. There was uncertainty ahead, but for the first time in a long while I felt a glimmer of hope. We were willing to put in the effort to create something new, but I also knew I had to guard my heart. It wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to take that chance. In the weeks and months that followed, we worked diligently on our relationship. We attended therapy together, confronted the issues head-on, and learned to communicate more openly. It was challenging, but gradually I began to see the changes in her. Corinne was committing to her personal growth, and I was learning to navigate my feelings of betrayal. It was a long road, and there were moments when I felt the old wounds resurface, but we were both committed to healing. I began to reconnect with the person I was before the betrayal, a stronger and more self-aware version of myself. I learned that while I had been hurt, I had also found the courage to stand up for what I needed. Ultimately, I realized that the journey of healing isn't linear. There are ups and downs, setbacks and breakthroughs. What mattered most was that we were both willing to put in the work to rebuild the trust and create a stronger foundation for our relationship. Looking back, I learned that betrayal doesn't have to define the entirety of a relationship. It can spark a painful but necessary awakening, leading to growth and understanding. As I navigated through the complexity of my emotions, I found strength in vulnerability and the courage to prioritize my own well-being. In the end, I didn't just recover a part of my marriage, I recovered a part of myself. And that, above all, was the most important victory of all.